different is derogatory in itself, whereas with Indians, to be different is not. I think Indians respect differences, and they value differences, and the individuality of people who have different visions is respected. But I don't see that in Christianity.
Is to say that we are all in ourselves products of nature, see, and we learn to respect what is surrounding us. What people say
Indian
today,
culture does.
Yes.
But Western culture doesn't.
Even
Western
the
culture
smallest,
says that God gave us this dominion, to have dominion over all the world. And
no, but see, then there's an
inferior.
expression of power, see? Because power only belongs to the Great Spirit. We are merely only expressions of that power because we think. That's what I think.
But isn't your Great Spirit merely another name for God?
Well,
As
if
I
you,
think
if
of
you,
God,
if you
you
would say
think
so,
of the
but I
Great
think this
Spirit?
Great Spirit is not a bargaining kind of God. He
No,
doesn't bargain
God to
for
me is
things.
not bargaining either.
Because when we all die, we go to the same place. It is never taught that you're going to
Rewarded or
a place
punished for
of
what you have done.
fire and all this kind of thing, that you're going to burn forever if you don't do the right thing.
I don't think the Indian thinks he's rewarded or
You
punished in the
don't
future.
believe in reward or punishment?
In our religion,
Why
it
should
Is
says,
your religion?
in our religion, it says that if you do anything good, you will be rewarded when you get up there.
Yes.
Well,
Here
in my
on this
thought,
What
in,
about
as far
punishment?
as religion is
Punishment there
concerned,
is wrong. He'll punish you in certain ways. That
Mm-hmm.
he'll do the punishment.
as far as my
equally.
religious concepts, it's based on what is here as in our environment, and to begin, our heaven would actually will remain to be seen depending upon what your values are here on earth. And if your values are here on earth that are very good, and things are, working in a coexistent way where people, begin to know and understand one another, then, religion itself, would actually descend itself. As far as I know, I do not know what's going to happen after I die, you see. And depending on what our merits are here on earth, then guilt is the thing that really destroys many people, you see. I mean, the concepts of hidden meanings, mystical thoughts, or, transcending from one different being to another is kind of an elusive extent as far as I'm concerned.
That
Don't
what
you believe
said-
that you are put here to use and use wisely the resources of the earth, and if you misuse these resources, they'll be taken away from you?
I don't know whether there is an ulterior motive. No, I wouldn't say I was put here, you see. I have happened to be here, you see, and these materials, the nature itself, I mean, as we are nature in itself. We are man, which we are no better than animal, because an animal has its own environment. A bird has its own environment. Many men have wanted to fly, and many men have tried to prove themselves of flying. So one man would like to be a bird, and another man would like to be a butterfly, you see. But you respect these principles,
Yet
or
in the
these,
classroom where I teach, when I tell my kids, before an Indian would chop a tree down or strip the bark from a tree, he would make an offering of tobacco and say, "I'm sorry that I have to do this, but it's necessary for me to live," would show a great reverence. And yet my kids say, "Oh, that's stupid. Why would you do that?"
That's in our religion.
well,
That's ours,
yeah.
too.
Give thanks to
Gloria,
God.
what do the Navajo say about the life after death, if any, or rewards and punishments?
They don't have those, not in the Christian sense. We don't even have one overpowering being, like I think the Christians believe in Jehovah or God, that sort of thing. But we have reverence for many deities, and we have one which sometimes becomes more powerful at some times than another, and that is the sun. So in a sense, we might be considered sun, worshiping people, but not per se, not fully, not as compared with maybe
Pantheism,
the
not
Sioux and so forth.
Do you believe in a future life?
Well, that's a difficult question.
There are tremendous differences among American Indians.
When you get
Right.
there, you'll tell us, right?
Right. It's something that I can't tell you about now.
I would have thought that most American Indians did not believe in an afterlife. They think death is a part of life
That's
and
No,
some
final.
other animism carries on.
I think that's where you're wrong, because when my father died and we danced, and when they got up to make the last dance before we went to the cemetery, that he was going to leave us and go to some place where there was no worries and all that. But there was no thought of him going the other way, see?
Mm-hmm.
They knew he was going there.
The idea of the after world, after death, is new to the Navajo people. It hasn't been in our tradition. Death is final, and with the exception of, some of the ghosts or spirits, that come back in the form of animals and so forth. And then there are some bad spirits that the Navajo people fear. And it becomes more acute, I suppose, during the nights. The worries and the anxieties about some of the possible spirits that may have come back.
I was wondering, when your father died and he went off somewhere, you know that he's going to wait for you there?
Indeed, I know that. I
Well,
feel
see,
that.
to me, that is the afterlife.
Yes.
And he will be then rewarded or punished.
Why
I don't
punishment?
know. I don't know what punishment I will get or what my parents will get, but I do know that
Consider the fact, if you think that Albert Einstein was a good man, he was a moral man, he had a philosophy behind what he done, and he done a lot for man, coming into a new kind of power, a new kind of age.
now on the other
And
hand,
now, if what he made, what he invented through his own work, and it is so destructive that it can kill millions and millions of people, now where is he going to go? Even although he has lived a good life. Now that in itself, I mean, and although he's not even a Christian. And then what about his rewards?
see, I do believe that we are judged on what we do and on the effects that my deeds have on others.
What are your deeds on others? Or your
I beg your
effects on
pardon?
others? What are your deeds or effects on others?
Well, my contact with you merely this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
You may go away thinking, oh, the Sisters of Mercy are strange characters. Or you may go away thinking, she really did try to learn something. And so, therefore, you have an idea about a Sister of Mercy, not about me, because I'm only just a member of the community.
I think that is what is important, what reflects from you rather
It
than
is.
your concepts.
Yeah, I do too.
Yes.
You have to be yourself. If you
Yeah.
be nothing else, you must be yourself. I couldn't exist being a representative, a symbol of something all the time. I
Oh,
have
but
to
an
be-
Indian can. I'm interested in the dichotomy here between you two. You're a member of a tribe and he's an individual.
Yes.
That's the typical difference between the Westerner and the Indian. The
Well,
Indian
I'm
is a
an
member of a group.
individual. I can't blame my community for what I am.
But isn't a member of a
I'm
tribe
myself.
an individual? I mean, doesn't he have more room to be
He's very much
individual even-
respected for his individuality, but his value and his importance is what good is he for his community? What can he do for his
Well,
people?
they're both, in a sense, they're both playing a role. There's the role of the Indian, there's a role that she plays, there's a role even you play. Even though you think that you don't want to symbolize anything except what you believe in.
I'm well
You
aware
still-
I play a role. Obviously, if I didn't, I wouldn't be teaching kids every day. I think what I do is important.
And what you're really trying to say is the fact that there is prestige, whether they be in tribe or whether they be in Catholicism or anything.
Well, the rewards that the community gives a person for what his contributions are. I think the Indian's contributions are good does he do for his community, whereas the white man's rewards are how much money does he make.
Mhm.
I think
One
Mr.
is
Shenandoah
material,
would
yes.
be able to make a lot of money if he didn't work at the Longhouse, if he didn't work for his community, if he didn't accept the very great responsibilities of being the Tadadaho. he could get out and make a lot of money, and most white people would.
I'm afraid that with the Navajo people, that does not play as an important factor as it did may have in the past. I don't know too much about our earlier values back in, let's say, about 40, 50 years ago. But the Navajo people, right now, the modern Navajo, is so much aware of the poverty, that has existed in his past, that he is becoming quite materialistic,
Yes.
I think. And this is my concern as a new educator, and this is my concern as one who is supposed to accept some responsibility to make these changes. I don't know what the answers are.
Well,
I
and the
do
reason-
believe, though, that technology, American technology, is important, because I think that if it's used correctly, it can release our energies to become greater people, to become more aware of ourselves, and to utilize and maximize those potentials, that we have. Now, I'm not about to say
Very dangerous tool, though, technology.
it is, but I think that man should not, just because, it's dangerous, I think that man all the more has a responsibility to exercise wisdom with love and understanding for his fellow being. And he can do it. I believe that.
Our technology now is destroying our world.
But it
Indeed.
also is opening what we call the third world. It's opening and releasing energies. Let's say the Latin American people are becoming aware of the fact that they're no longer just the peasant societies, and even with the Indian people at the present time. Now, I think we did have some validity in the past, when we said we had some very strong traditions and so forth. But we have to recognize that these are in jeopardy. They've been jeopardized already, and they've been lost by a great number of people. If that weren't so, then we wouldn't have the problems of morality with the young kids who can hardly make a decision, who don't understand this thing of guilt, who don't understand this thing of self-hatred that they have, and who believe that they are really inferior to everyone else. But this is because of the cultural genocide that has been practiced upon us for
Then
centuries.
you are saying there is cultural genocide.
Yes, I am. But
Well,
I
that's
don't.
been the
be-
policy of
but I
the
don't
United
believe-
States government to
but
And
I
then
don't.
under
enculturate
those,
the Indians, to make them come into
Gloria-
the
That's
white
right.
culture.
That's
Well,
right.
they-
But I'm just saying that
Gloria,
I
under
believe
those
that
conditions,
technology.
then, is there such a thing as the Indian actually assimilating with the white race? Then,
No, I don't. I don't think it's necessary to assimilate into.
no, I said, is there such thing? Would there be a time when the Indians will actually make a tremendous contribution to the white race, or can the Indians withdraw, maintain their own cultures, to flourish their own cultures, and then, you see, have an actual cultural assimilation?
I don't know if I can answer your question, but here's what I think. I think that it's possible for us to live side by side with the Anglo-American. I believe that as soon as we reach a certain level of economic status, same as everyone else, the political.
How can we
There have been many
temper
riders.
Well,
recognition?
let me finish this, and then I believe it's people such as ourselves who it's our responsibility to continue in this search for what I call a new Indian, because we're not going to be as we were in the past. Nevertheless, I believe it behooves the rest of America to allow us to make our lives. Let us chart our own destinations, whatever that may be. This is all we ask.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not saying that we're going to go into the past. I'm not saying that we can remain isolated. I would dearly love it if the Navajo tribe could secede from the Union. I would dearly love it if we could become an independent country, within this country, and where we could have our own economic base, where we could have our own political base, and where we could have, visas for people to come into our reservation, and where we can say what we are going to, how we're going to live. This is what I would like, but I think this is a romantic notion of mine.
I hope that while you do that and adopt white ways in some respects, you will also be able to transfer to our society some of your values.
We have some important things, just as the rest of the Indian groups have. I think, though, that to say that we cannot avoid, or we can avoid becoming westernized, or a technological society is in the future for all of us. Now, it's possible that the Indians can avoid some of the costly mistakes that the white America has made, and that we can still retain our soul. It's also possible, I believe this, because if you look at countries like Japan, they're a third world power. They have a great many contributions to make. And yet they're becoming westernized, And
But you spoke
at the
about the
same
third
time, they're
world.
still.
There's so many people in Africa and South America and Asia who don't have the standard of living that we have, and yet they aspire to it. Just as you
That's
say, the
right.
Navajo, they see our material things, that they like our trucks, they like our TV, they like the material things of our society, but an energy, if all of the world's people want the same standard of living, it just can't go around. Now, the Indians have learned to live with a low standard of living, a low materialistic
All we want are
demands on
basic essentials of life. We want a warm home.
You need to teach the
We
rest
want-
of us that.
We want warm clothing.
Oh, these are the
I
values
think-
that we can give to your society.
I think these things, though, what we're talking about had been discussed many years ago, because when they put in the Constitution, it said about the commerce with the American Indian, with the Indians. See, the Indians themselves had known this, and the government too, and later contracts with the Indians and treaties, they said that they would provide so much monies and payment in specie and so many other goods to support this, and because in the treaties it stated for education's purpose, and they haven't kept that promise.
No,
So-
but what I meant was that the world's resources of energy and materials and minerals simply cannot supply the population of the world at the standard of living that we now enjoy here. And we now realize that the
Yeah, but you're
pollution
including
and
quite a
the
bit when you say
exhaustion.
we.
When you say world, that's another thing. But when you're talking about the United States, certainly it should be. If we can afford a costly war,
Right.
we certainly, if we can.
We ought to share what we have,
Everybody talks
but we ought to
about
develop
money
a
and
culture
war,
that doesn't demand so much of the earth.
because people are
Right,
getting to the
exactly.
point now where they think they can buy peace. You can't buy peace.
It seems like
It's
religion
right
has to
here.
become real estate, huh?
Yeah.
Or something. We have to have a system of values in which it's not more important to make money than to produce a plastic that won't recycle into the environment. We're producing so much waste material now that we're drowning in it.
That's right.
And what do we do about
Everybody
that?
still goes-
I think you can teach us values there.
Everyone still goes to church, but they don't look up into the sky. They don't think about the soil they walk on, nor the water that they drink, or the trees that come back every year in that same cycle, the green, the browns to the reds, and then your winters. There's a lot of beauty in this.
There's
People
a lot
pass
of
it
beauty in
by.
that the Indians have
right.
seen, and I don't think the Christian church has learned it yet.
That's right, and they drop their coins into the box and say, "Oh boy, I feel great."
So our
And they
fight would
still
be
don't see
actually
this.
You're making a
against the,
blanket indictment.
Oh, I think
Well, I
it's
said
safe to
church.
say
I didn't
it.
specify
I
any
think he's
church.
making a very
No,
conservative
well, I mean
statement.
church in the general sense of the term.
I think we're talking of industry, really. I mean,
Yes.
the fight is really against the industry rather than just segments of people. You see
But
what
our
I mean?
industry thrives on our values. That's what
right.
the American nation
That's
wants.
right.
We want
Right.
those things that industry supplies us with.
Right.
But if we personalize at this moment, you're not primarily concerned with material values. Neither am I, neither is he. So if we make a blanket statement, I think we would be wrong.
Look, if religion worked, if Christianity worked, then think of all the years that
Say it
they've
as
had
if
a chance.
Christians worked.
If they had a chance, they had all these years to make some kind of contribution to the Indian scene. If they thought that they had something, what have they done? All they've done is helped with this process of dehumanization. They've helped the alienation process. They made me hate so much during the time that I was
Attended.
after. I can say now safely that I think that I've stabilized somewhat. But there was a horrible time in my life, and I think that there are many people who go to the mission schools, Indian kids who've gone to the mission school, my own contemporaries. You went,
Yes.
and
Are
by
these
golly,
Catholic
there's something wrong
Yes.
when they
Well,
make
they
us
wouldn't have to be
hate
Catholic.
ourselves.
They could be any mission.
No, I'm just
And
asking
that's
her
a
whether she
religion.
went to
Oh,
a
are they? I
Catholic
don't
mission.
know.
Now, here's another thought.
They are Catholic, huh? No?
In the times when I was born and I was growing up, the government still owed these Indians money, and they knew this. So, all right, to bypass this, in these treaties, they've already got churches out there. Why not make these people work for that money? So they go back out and they send, because conditions are so destitute and privation is so rampant, and then they send the children off to mission schools to be proselyted, to be believing in this way, to believe that they're evil and sinful. And after so many times of worshiping in the churches, and then to go back home after school and go back to the reservation life and to experience in the longhouse the dances, and then what? Who is to believe? You want to take the soul and chop it in two. And now
Black
what
and
good has
white.
that done?
This is the values of, the way that the white American looks at life is black and white. He sees things two-sided. He sees, he makes everything become a dichotomy. There's evil, there's good, there's Jesus, or there's Satan, and there's God. Two antagonistic forces. This is a very Western characteristic of
you'd call it.
of Westernized thinking. This is really alien to us.
Well, see, I can't speak in general terms, but I could speak, for instance, of missionaries, both Catholic and Protestant, who have given of themselves personally to go out and have sacrificed everything. We have missions in
No,
India at the
the
present
Indian
moment.
people didn't ask for this.
No, they went out hoping to do good and to help others to the knowledge of the one true God.
To teach but not to learn.
I believe they learned. I really do.
I don't see it.
What
I don't
did
see
they
it.
learn?
They actually used, I think they used very cleverly, that they used the missionaries to split the people and then to gain their confidence, because it was a wedge to go in like so, like I was explaining about Father Marquette. He was with the Indians. He dedicated his life to the Indians, but he got this crazy thing about land.
But do you know how other
He
people
sailed down
can
to
use
Mississippi
you?
and mapped it all out and then brought it back to the settlers. And they knew
He
where
did
to go.
not do that. He himself.
Well, why is it in the history book?
Well, he himself mapped out down the
Oh,
Mississippi
indeed,
and all
yes,
that.
but why did he get the bug
didn't-
about real estate? When everyone else had
I
the
think
same
it was
thing.
the government, the French government.
But he didn't
that
have to
was-
respond to that. He was working out of his field.
Both are instruments, I would assume.
I believe
I would think so, too.
every
There's another
I
dimension.
believe every race have Creator has sent down a messenger for each race. I think, and I think there's violation in the religion. When you, as you say, a white American, go ahead and try and teach an Indian their religion, I think they're violating it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that gives
Both
the
of them are
Indians
phenomenal.
just the same amount of right to go out and missionize. Maybe that's the spirit of the future, that we have to go out and missionize and make Indians out of the rest of America.
That's right.
Well, you already have.
Indianize instead of
Religion now.
Christianize.
You have already done that to a much larger
Well,
extent
we
than most
have,
Americans
but
realize.
that has not
Yes.
been recognized.
No,
And
I
that's
say.
our responsibility to
Yeah.
make certain
But
that
Americans
these are
are different
documented.
than Europeans. And there's
Must
a
remember,
lot-
our Five Nations was set up on the base of religion.
Oh, was it really?
it is a religion.
They're
The Five
religious.
Nations.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So the six
No, I-
nations.
The
Tribes of
government and
people
the
have
religion are the same
religion.
things.
Government and religion is combined.
But your religion is primarily animistic?
How do you
What
mean?
is-
animal?
Thanksgiving to the Creator. No, they don't
Yes.
worship animals.
Trees,
they-
plants,
they don't
seed
worship
pods?
them.
They don't
No,
worship
not
it.
worship,
They
no.
don't worship
No,
it.
no
They,
It's
worship.
not
no.
worship.
Let's,
No.
they thank
Respect.
him for
Primitive
it. They thank the
information.
Creator
Mhm.
for giving them the water.
And they feel that they're in harmony with all their surroundings, and that it's important that they recognize that harmony not only between people, and not only to God, but also to their surroundings. And that's what our culture doesn't do.
I
From
can't
the very
imagine
beginning, from
myself
Genesis,
standing in
they-
front of a tree and worshiping this tree, and the darn tree
No,
is
I would not,
growing
that
leaves.
was not my idea at
But
all.
you're talking
Yeah.
about pantheism and
But
that sort of thing. Is that it?
These are just instruments
No.
to be thankful for.
No, they are things that you are grateful to God that He has given to you.
Not
Even
grateful,
the
but
water.
rather
No,
thankful
didn't give
on the
them to you.
simple man's
Not
point
given.
of
He
view.
gave you to them,
To use.
just as much.
Oh, I see.
See, there's a difference between giving and sharing.
Mm-hmm.
There is a
Genesis
great deal of
says
difference
that
between
God gave us this world for us to have dominion over, for us to use. The only good the world has is what good it does us. And the Indians don't think that. The Indians think that they are part of it. They are in harmony with it. They and the animals must all share it uniformly. The two-leggeds and the four-leggeds and the wingeds, they're all God's creatures, and they're all in this together and to live harmoniously. We use it. We destroy it. We consume it. It's ours. And there's a big difference, and we're reaping the benefits, or not the benefits, the catastrophic results of this philosophy. The pollution, the despoilation, the strip mines, the loss of all the resources. We'll soon be out of petroleum. We're already running out of silver. We're running out of copper.
They call that progress, don't they?
They call that progress. The faster we use up our petroleum, the better. The advertisements tell us to take a joyride and to take a jet trip and to use a bigger automobile and to consume these things as fast as possible because the people who own the stock in these petroleum companies will make more money.
Yes,
Ted, I
conservatively
think there's
speaking,
a-
the average American destroys the same amount of environment as 25 to 30 Asians. That's
easily.
conservatively speaking.
There's a problem here. I see that we're making some easy generalizations about the the Indian way and
Well, many Indians have
and
adopted
the
white
the
values.
white way. I think that philosophers, if I understand of the Western thought, believe that and they're becoming more aware of this, and it's very important to understand this, that man is above the animals in a sense. He's above the animal world. I'm not sure if it was because, like the Christians say, that he was created in the image
By
of
reason
God.
of His intelligence.
But that, that's, to me, is not important. The important thing is that I do believe that man is, and I think that when we say that we live in harmony with our universe, with our world, with our physical environment, that's something else. Because, for example, on the Navajo, if we're desert people, if we had to constantly try to be in harmony with the winds that came, scorching winds that came across to the desert, we would really be foolish. So in a sense, we realize that we are man, we are above, and there are some things that we can do. This is why we have to build shelter, and this is why we have there's something called rational,
Rationalization.
well,
This is one thing that
No.
animals do not have. They can't decide whether this is right or wrong.
that's right. And
Oh,
so
animals build
this is
shelters
why
too.
you,
But
this
they
is
build
why you
shelters.
can't really
But I don't consider man being above
romanticize
animal
this thing,
because
though.
you ever
You know,
try to chase after
This
a
is
tiger?
what most of white America, or most Americans do. Even the Indian people, I think, they tend to accept this as a rationalization, or a way of life when they're not really sure. I don't think, or they're not very clear in their minds what they mean by harmony with nature and so forth.
We spoke
Because-
earlier about the Navajos being sheep herding people, and the size of the herds had to be controlled from outside because they were destroying the grasslands.
That's right.
So this would be an example of what
Yes,
you're talking about.
we see now without the kind of help if we had gone the way that we had in the 1930s, the sheep would have overgrazed in that area, and we would really have seen some erosions. We already did see some decimation of the land. Now this is an example of the biggest Indian tribe in the United States, and this is what had happened here. Now, so that's why I'm afraid, for us to just go, off and make these easy
Well, I think the only
generalizations. We
reason-
have to think this thing out, because I believe that this is a problem with Latin America, for example, or a problem with the third world, that the peasant people, or the so-called peasant society, I hate that, but I'm going to use that term now, They believe that they're, just part of nature, and so that they have no power over nature, and so they're very fatalistic. They have they just have become so accepting and so passive of, the things around them. They feel like they have no control over things. And I think this might be happening with many of the Indian people. When young kids go off to the cities, they say, well, or when they go to colleges, I've seen this over and over again. They go into these apartment buildings, and they have somebody calls and say, we're going to have a party. And so then everybody goes, and there's there's drinking. There's a whole lot of drinking. And I hear these kids, they say, well, we're drinking because there's pressures. We're caught between two worlds. And in other words, they are passively accepting what they consider are pressures, rather than, finding other more peaceful, let's say, other ways of...
But there's a big difference between Indians who are in transition and Indians who were living a long time ago in a stable society.
Well, that's true, but then...
So what is Indian is different now in
That's
Chicago
right.
than what
and
was
that's why we
Indian.
can't use when you said, this thing about the Indian people, live with harmony with the universe. We can't accept that as truth for today. Maybe it was something that really did happen the way that the people felt at one time.
You can't even accept it back in that time, insofar as, from my little knowledge, one tribe fought against another tribe. You had to come home with the scalp at your belt.
That's stereotype information.
No,
That's
you
why
know,
the
that's
white man pushed one
stereotyping.
tribe into
that
another
was
tribe.
that was
No, this
brought
was
in.
before
if
the
you
white
read-
man
No,
came.
no,
No.
no.
The scalping.
No, scalping come from
is
a
new.
decree from the King of England. I said before, these guys got carried away from the #1 bestseller, Marquis de Sade. He was a novelist. They got hung up on this idea, so they said, well, let's try it out on the
You had
Indians.
no
It might work.
fights, no
And it was a quick
quarrels?
way to extermination.
You had no fights or quarrels between tribes before the white
If
man
there
came?
were, it was probably on such a small scale it wouldn't even make any difference.
We did.
Because
That's
they would have
completely
killed
different
themselves
from
out
what
a
I
long
had
time
ever
ago.
known.
They would have developed new methods for killing one another. Like when you come across the ocean from the other side, they said, oh, we come in peace. But they had some beautiful cannons, didn't they?
Oh, yes.
What-
And they
you
knew how
read-
to organize with their soldiers, didn't they?
What you read was written by white people after the white people arrived, after they had upset the dynamic equilibrium of life here, having introduced a trade for furs, etc., which was competition as to which
And
Indians would get
firearms.
the iron kettles and the axes and the guns.
I just read the beginning of Samuel Morrison's History of the American People, and he has a whole chapter in the beginning of Indians before the white man came.
How did they know that?
Yes.
Well, it's through anthropology, I presume.
How can they figure
No.
that out?
That
though?
I don't know.
I mean, how
Why
can
don't
they be
you
so
say- why don't you
charismatic
read
as to
something
dig
more
up a
concrete
bone
by,
and determine everything?
William Carlos Williams, an American Grain, it is called.
An
And,
American Dream?
Grain,
Grain.
it's essays.
Grain.
Read that, and you might get a different view
You know,
to what Indians are
I
like.
sort
you
of
know.
can't figure a tribe living in perfect peace and harmony with another tribe, with a third tribe,
You've grown up
before
in
the
in
American,
times of
before the
tradition.
the white man came.
There was always a kinship between all the different tribes.
What about the tribes in the north as compared with the tribes in the southwest?
Oh,
And
you're
if they
right.
came in conflict over land?
You
There was
have
a
you have a
continuance.
point, because I think, and though I'm from the Navajo tribe, I'm going to say this, and many of them will scalp me when I get back. But it's true, and it's something that we can't avoid. The Navajo people are considered imperialists to the Rio Grande
You're
public.
intruders,
Right, we're intruders. We're new to the area, like maybe 700-800
just like
years
the
old.
white people are.
But during this time, well, there's a lot of animosity between the Navajo and the Hopi people. The Hopi people, they have a little pueblo right in the middle of the Navajo
Now,
reservation.
you're speaking
And we
about
s-
what time, Clary?
Right now.
We're,
Right now,
We're-
right now.
And so now we're in litigation between the two, between the Hopi and the
Because the Navajo are taking the Hopi land.
That's what they say, and so the Navajo say, well, you're not using it. Why fuss about something that you haven't used for several centuries? So, I mean, both sides have,
Same
valid
cycle
points.
all over again.
But it's wrong for me to go and dislike a Hopi. just because everybody else is doing it around there, and it's wrong for the Hopi to hate me just because I'm Navajo. I think that in the past there has been, although there have been these animosities I'm talking about, there's also been a great deal of cultural interchange.
Has there been, on your reservation, is there allotments?
No.
Yes, in a certain part of what we call the checkerboard
Do you
area.
have anything called, any land held in common?
All of
I
it.
mean, by,
The rest of it is.
the rest of it is?
Yes.
Well, see, someone had to get a feeling, say, this is mine and mine. And that's how they split the reservations by the Dawes Act. You say,
Well, this is all very recent. I'd like to go
Yeah.
back.
One boundary.
Huh?
The Indians didn't make up the sharing or making the boundary, or you should stay.
The Navajo, in the Navajo religion, we have set out 4 boundaries, 4 points, the sacred mountains, and then the land in between that, we said is ours. And it has been acceptable to everyone else, and even to the Hopi people. But then there came a time...
maintained, in other words.
Pardon?
It was agreed and maintained then.
Right. But it was small. Of course, this is smaller than the land that we had roamed before, because we were going into the area that now the Apache, were brothers. We went into the area where many of the Spanish American villages are, but the Rio Grande people or the Puebloan people were there, quite some time before we were.
I'd like to go back to Sister Henrietta's question, if I may, because what we're talking about the Navajo is what's happened in the last 500 years, and it hasn't entirely settled down yet. They still have characteristics of intruders. But if you take the time 500 or 600 years ago, around here where the Navajos were not, or before the Navajos came down from Alaska or wherever, the Indians had been around here for 25,000 years at least. I mean, the anthropologists have come and archaeologists have come to that amount, and they can prove that. Now, they may have been here 100,000 years, we just can't prove how much more. But that's a long, long time for some kind of a dynamic stability to have been established. The land was completely occupied. Some people think this was an empty continent, but this land was completely occupied by people by that kind of a technology. It was supporting just as many people as was possible. And people had shaken down to some kind of a way of living with your neighbors. Now, I'm sure there was some pressures of population increase possibly, but that was all dynamic, and a lot of high death rate to be sure, and they didn't have medical services. So things had stabilized pretty much, and people pretty well knew who owned what land. Now, I won't say that there weren't personal jealousies for status or for finding a wife or other personal conflicts that may have arisen, but as far as groups were concerned, I think that they pretty well knew whose land was whose, and there weren't major warfares.
And even
The
intertribal
object is-
conflicts were between 5 and 6 individuals
Yes.
rather than whole tribes.
That's right.
Well, you'd say the object of the whole matter is the fact that they had a workable system that wasn't actually a system where it would actually resolve certain problems temporarily. In other words, it was a system where the existence of each different tribes lived among each other was an actual permanent, concept as to what is right and what is wrong for the other person, rather going beyond more than respect, you'd say, wouldn't it?
But you know what, if I can pull out of my mind the knowledge I had from a half a century ago, although I won't tell you my age, the Indians used to move from place to place after they had used up the resources of one area.
Only when the
Then-
government said so.
No, this was before.
There was some truth in that.
They moved
would say
then
that.
to a better hunting ground or a better...
Some of them lived one place in the wintertime and another place in the summertime,
Now suppose when
and
they
sometimes
got
they'd
there,
move a few feet to where there was land. that
We still
wasn't
do
spent.
that. The
You
Navajo
still
still...
move. But
We have
suppose-
winter homeland and we have summer homeland, and we still go between those two places.
They're not nomads any more than the people in Philadelphia who spend the summer in winter in Florida. Or
Yeah, ranchers have winter ranges and summer ranges as
certainly.
well.
Mhm.
Same
No, but
kind
I
of thing.
wondered if in their moving and they came across another group, even a portion of a tribe who had come there, then there would be conflict.
Well, I wouldn't know anything about that.
Wow,
Kickapoos can come on our reservation. We were glad
No
to have
trouble
them.
whatsoever.
We had our own territory. But we in the winter time, we moved from the highland to the lowland. We didn't go into We had our own territory.
In your definition, you'd say that we weren't all saints either, you know.
Well,
That's true.
I think
I
the
think that's true
important
of all
thing,
people,
the
regardless of
important
your-
thing that the American
But then you
public
can't
needs to
preconceive
know
ideas by
is that we
information
all
that you have. See, I
you
mean,
know,
you
there's
can
so
only
many
generalize of what
tribes.
is happening in the environment, you see.
and
This
we
is what we're trying to bring across.
and we have our individual tribal differences. My tribe is so completely different from the Hopi, and yet we're neighbors, and we've been neighbors for the longest since we came into the area. The Hopi people cannot speak Navajo, nor can we speak Hopi. Well, there are, some variations here, but this is generally the case. I hardly know anything about your background or your people.
Well, as a matter of fact, I hardly know much about yours
That's
either.
right. And this is, I think, one of the reasons why this thing of red power cannot exist unless if it's made up of those people who are
Who's
mobile.
interested in red power?
No, the people who are mobile, the ones who move, around. And, for example, now we have this chance
And that's
to
why
meet.
Indians should not actually be generalized. Because
That's
we
right.
are of different
That's right.
peoples, different religions, different
That's right.
concepts, different languages, as a matter
Mhm.
of fact.
Very different.
So, your concept of the way the Indian, your philosophy of Indian, is strictly yours.
Mhm.
I mean, from your own background, and his is different from mine.
Well,
and
this is an
I'm
example
pointing
too
out some
of
of
what
the
assimilation
things
is.
are very human about us. I'm trying very hard not to romanticize the Navajo way of life, although I think that's the best.
Good for you.
You're being very honest, though, and
You
giving a
speak
clear
of
picture of it.
keeping it very individual, though, but you're against, and I think it's honest to say, you're faced with the power of the government of the United
That's right.
States that is very, very strong. Without some kind of unity, what can you do? Your history of treatment by the government
Mhm.
has been one of
I'm
powerlessness.
interested.
I mean, you go
I'm
back to where
interested
the
in red
plains.
power because I believe that this is the only way for us to exist. I mean, our only means of survival,
Red power?
red power.
Oh,
But I don't
think it goes
believe-
much more further than red
I don't
power.
believe that
No.
it can get off ground as long as I said, the Indian people are poor. They can't afford to move across and shuttle across the United States. I can't go up and see your country, even though I'd like to see, what the conditions are in your own home areas. And if I did this, I would have a better idea of Indianism, pan-Indianism. But
that goes beyond red power. It goes into the area of culturation. The Indians have to culturate rather than
you mean with one another?
not only with one another, with actually the environment where they live. I mean,
I don't agree
Well,
with that.
I don't know.
Maybe we have to define what red power is, but I assume
Well,
red
I
power
think-
means the opportunity and ability for Indians
I
to
think
govern
it-
themselves.
That's right. That's the way I'm defining it. I'm defining it as a unification of as many of the Indian tribes as possible in
power
on a
is the
common
same
front.
thing, though. Power is
common
just
front.
the limited senses. Power, greed, lust, and
No,
you
I-
know,
We're not
No,
trying to run the rest of the
How,
United
how do
States.
you attack the
No,
problem?
I
I-
want to run the Navajo
No,
reservation.
no.
When you
no.
have a government that'll break a treaty like the Corn Planter Treaty that was signed by General Washington, you have to have power to fight that.
That's
You
right.
simply can't do it any other way.
John Kennedy broke the
Seneca.
Seneca Treaty.
Yes.
Now, it may
Right,
have
to build
helped
against
Seneca
Sudan.
if we, the Navajos, knew about this and if we could have somehow exercised a little bit of the power that we do have.
interrelationships,
Right.
you would probably consider it.
But
Between
we,
one tribe
like I
from the
said,
other.
most of the Navajos, if you visit our reservation, I don't think many of the Navajos travel more than 50 miles radius from their own little communities. And so in that sense, they are provincial. In that sense, because of our, physical isolation, because of our poverty, we don't know what's going on in the East. And yet we should. And this is why I say red power won't happen. As long as we're tied to our land, as long as we're tied to our space and our time. And this is the way it is.
That's a
I thought
dangerous
you
thing
were-
to say. People will want to untie you from your land, if you put it that way.
Termination.
Just lots of people will love to
Yeah.
get that land away
Well,
from you.
I don't mean it in that way. I mean
Well,
that
what-
if we were an affluent society, just as yours, then we should have, the money to go travel. I could go see what's going on, and maybe I might be able to,
that can be
in my
established by
own way,
cultivation.
exercise some kind of program that might help American
But your red
Indian.
power is still a dream when you consider over 200 million white people in the country
Unless
and only a half
unless we
million
follow
Indians.
the highly militant
Yes.
activities of the black
I don't
communities
think
Yeah, but
so.
we don't-
They're not-
we-
the
they don't
Indians
need
aren't
to.
trying to run the rest
You don't
of us.
have
They're
to be
just trying to run their own
influenced by it.
Run
affairs.
their run themselves.
Why not?
Even so, Ted,
So
I
we
think
We
we
need
have to have
press.
some kind of
We need
support
power. We need
from the whole
unity.
population in order to be able to do it.
Have to
And
be
that's-
allowed
that's
to,
black.
yes.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
a lot of these Indians have the rights. They do have the rights if the United
On
States has only
paper.
recognized the treaties.
And we're trying to enforce the American public to understand. We should make demands on them, really loud demands.
Most of the
And the only
American
way to
public
do
doesn't
it is,
even know.
oh, they're so excited about Alcatraz. And but this is the press, this is sensationalism, this is news they don't like to look at poverty, they don't like to come and see, the malnutrition and this sort of thing that exists on
Most
the
of us
reservations.
truthfully don't know anything about the Indians.
And
so-
that, I think, has a lot to do with this, one of the questions that we posed earlier, the one on what can we do to get the press behind us. For one thing, we have to, somehow, I think the Indian people should have an information bureau which will counteract BIA, for one thing. We should have an information center right in Washington with just using the same kind of news media that the rest of
How
America
about
has.
HEW?
Oh,
How
boy.
to help educate whites to understand the Indians.
That's right, that's
What
right.
about your Bureau of Indian Affairs, though, if it could really be made to work?
Well, the only way BIA
doesn't
will
work.
work is if they get so much bad publicity and they are so constantly embarrassed.
Well, you know what I
We
did a
have to
moment
do
ago
I think
when
it's
you
just silent things for a period of time, and then it will still continue to remain as it is. I mean, I'm judging by past experience
Well,
of
you're
age.
right,
Yes,
in
I
a
mean,
sense,
we've
but
been,
that's why we have to
we've
use
had
a
the
new
Bureau for
kind of
quite a while.
strategy.
Mhm.
We have to go sit in on Louis Bruce.
I didn't realize
Right.
you were saying BIA,
Bureau of
BIA,
Indian
Bureau of
Affairs.
Indian
right.
Affairs.
Of course, there are a couple agencies in Washington now, the National Congress of American Indians,
They're
and also
conservative.
the Alaska Federation of Natives has an office in Washington now to try to educate our public.
About Walter Hickel.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, not
All right.
yes, but also mainly just about the land problems and the rights of the natives of Alaska to the land that their ancestors have lived on for thousands and thousands of years, which now the Atlantic Refining Company and some others have moved
I
in
think
on
that's important.
and
I
say
think that
that
is.
they're going to take it over, pay the state for it. The state never owned that land. It
Well,
owns the people that
NCAI
live there.
could be the instrument to do this, to provide this information that I'm talking about. But they have to change their strategy completely.
Well, the Bureau of Indian Affairs
They have
is
to become
responsive to
radical.
Congress, not to the Indians.
Pardon?
The Bureau of Indian Affairs
You
are
can't-
responsive to Congress. They're the agency, they respond to
And
the...
the
president.
Congress is responsive to the public.
That's right. That's right.
And so
It
this
should
is the
be.
reason why we've got to start educating the American public about
Are you
our
the public?
problems. Pardon?
We're all
Are
part of
we
it.
considered the public?
We're talking to the
No.
public right now. That's the reason for being
I
here.
was
In the past, the missionaries, the church groups, the white Christians made some terrible mistakes on the Indian reservations and with the Indian people. But now is their chance to do something. If they really, and I'm not sure how they can help us, but I think probably their main use is one of political lobbying for us. We say what we want, and the religious groups can come and help us lobby for these things, these changes that we need to make in Congress. We need to have our demands heard by the power people in Washington.
This recent book by Vine Deloria, Custer Died for Your Sins, he's very hard on various groups of people, anthropologists and white people who want to do something for Indians, do-gooders and the Indian interest organizations and the churches, and yet having panned them very severely, in the very last chapter he says really the people he has the greatest hopes for are the help that he might receive from these very same people. They're the ones who know most about it, are most closely involved, and
I believe that.
yeah.
I believe that. I believe that they deserve, all the criticisms that we can heap on them. But at the same
But a
time, I
little bit
believe
of
they
credit
also have
also.
a moral obligation to
can
undo
be the
the
most helpful.
wrong.
Well, they make saleable books, I guess. But a lot of people don't buy books.
Well, that one's worth reading. It's a lot of fun,
Oh, you mean
too. It's got a whole
Dolores' book?
chapter on
I mean, I thought I was talking about the anthropologists and everything, you know, that sort. They could create more material, and the more they draw from the Indians, and what little they do know that's left, they would put it on the market as a saleable item.
Publish or perish. Let the Indian perish, and the anthropologists will publish.
Well, I don't know. I don't really know if the anthropologists and the archaeologists have really done any good for the people.
I know some that I've talked to who refused to join the Indian Rights Association because they feared that if they did, they would lose any chance of getting employment from the federal government to oppose the Indians' claims for compensation. They didn't want to be associated with the pro-Indian groups.
$5,000 a year grant.
But then on the other hand, we have to admit that because of the anthropologist early work and even current work, we are stockpiling that information that the Indian students can use.
The old people
Now,
are dying, but
at
the
Harvard,
work that's written stays.
There are 10 Indian students there now. And yesterday this week, the American Indian students approached the dean of the college and asked and demanded, well, I shouldn't say demand, they were very reasonable, in impressing upon Dean May's mind why they need the American Indian Studies program. Most people don't realize that Harvard, which started in 1600s, had a building which was supposed to be for this purpose. It was an Indian college, and there were 6 Indian students who were there at that time. There was also some money that was collected in England for an Indian Studies program. So now in 1970, this is being reactivated.
Haverford's starting an Indian Studies program this semester.
I think this is something that's happening. The University of Minnesota, University of California, as I understand, New Mexico. Now, I understand
St.
too that
Lawrence
Harvard and New Mexico universities have the best resource material on Indians of the whole hemisphere. Because when when the American Indians talk about Indian problems, we should remember that there are Indians in Mexico and there are Indians in South America, and they have it even worse than we have.
We at Gwynedd Mercy College, excuse me, we at Gwynedd Mercy College introduced a course last year called Minorities in the U.S., and about 1/5 of the course was devoted to the Indians, and the girls enjoyed the course very much.
Mm-hmm.
But then we took in the Puerto Ricans and the Negroes. I can't think of the other 2 groups.
You talk about the Indians of South America having it worse than North American Indians do. In Brazil particularly, they're actually being exterminated physically. People go out on hunting forays to see how many they can shoot, so to kill them off, or really genocide, so that the land will be opened up to speculators and...
I think this is happening in Peru too. Peru and
It's happening
Brazil
here,
are
right
the-
here in the
Well,
United States,
so
because
that's
we're starving them out.
Well, yeah,
One way or another, they're going to get that land, right?
Well, that happened here in the
It
past.
did happen.
though.
It did happen.
Not
yes.
only the people, but they went and destroyed the plains economy. They killed all the buffalo simply to drive them off the plains.
Yeah.
Nothing to eat on the plains.
Yeah, it's like I was saying before about that actual statement in that treaty on genocide. It says, after these Indians moved from Council Bluffs, they made that treaty, they said it is desirous by the Indians that they move to Kansas and other places. And in that same time, strategically, 10,000 Mormons blasted from here in the east and settled there right there in Council Bluffs. 10,000. And these poor Indians had to move down into Kansas to be open to more land squeezings and everything. And if you can imagine, you take that the Potawatomis were signing for Pennsylvania land, Ohio land, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and now the land that they own down there is less than 11 square miles.
The Indians that lived in this area, the Lenape, known as the Delawares,
Yes.
and without them, the white men would never have survived here. Don't exist anymore at all as a tribe. They were driven from here up into the mountains and then across the state, Ohio, into Kansas, and at every step along the way, many of them died. Finally, they ended up in reservations in Oklahoma. The last of them were adopted by the Cherokees. And they don't
Well, the
exist as a tribe
Cherokees
at
have a
all.
sad history.
To talk about genocide, it's very clear. It's
Go ahead.
The United States government is doing this in one of the most fantastic ways. They're doing it through education. They're doing it through BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs, educational programs. About 92 to 98% of all Indian students who are being given an education through the federal government is the Navajo. And I'm not certain how many Navajo students that entails, but the situation is so bad that I'm really shocked, and I really am surprised that we're not marching on Washington.
Of course, they're not killing them physically, they're killing them culturally.
That's right, and the boarding school curriculum, the schools that they have on the reservation, there's it seems like a deliberate attempt to make us forget our past.
It doesn't seem
and
like
to-
it is.
Well, okay.
I've been
That's
to
a
Alaska
general
too.
idea.
They've robbed us of our
Education and-
cultural
They admit it.
history.
That's the
Right.
policy under which they
Christianity.
operate,
Is it really?
to make
That's
them
right.
forget and be unable to exist in their home communities and to be prepared to live in white man's communities.
And
In
forget
the
your name
time
and
when my
address.
parents were in school, they could see this. They could see this hostility directed towards them. My father tells about how he used to carry a ball and chain during the times of 1930s at Wingate, when they were punished. This was the kind of punishment they had, and they were treated like prisoners, and they were prisoners of war. But my parents knew enough to know who their enemies were. Now the problem is in this present generation of kids, they don't know. They really don't know, and they think that the thing is to become white man, and so they
White
look at
men or
their
Americanized?
elders with contempt, and I can tell you it's happening on the Navajo, and it's frightening. I don't know exactly what the solution is. I really don't. I'm afraid that we're
Education of the
going
white
to be.
man.
This is
How
where
can we do? What
BIA
can we
comes
do?
in.
When the Navajo kids themselves think that they're getting the best education possible, they've been brainwashed. They are so passive. They are non-critical thinkers. They accept everything that's given to them as truth.
What is happening now on the Navajo Reservation about these school boards, though? That's something very new that I've read about.
It is new, but the thing, and it looks as if it's working. It's a tool, and I believe it's put out by BIA to show that they are really responding to the wants of the community. What they have done is they have these boards.
Window dressing?
And that's what I would call it, window dressing. I think probably Rough Rock is one good example of how the people have been conned into thinking that they are really progressive. They have progressive thinking.
Species might enter into that environment, you see. And then you have another group, you see, which actually has a romanticized concept of what Indian life is like, you see, as far as mythology, the principles of what Indians are like. Concept, but then there is another area which most people might say that my work is rather primitive in many cases because I lack the experience as far as modern technology is concerned, you see.
Well,
Mhm.
I would
But
think
what-
that there's a sort of there's quite a great discrepancy in people's educational attainment so far as that people who do read tend to pick up coin phrases of their own as far as stereotype is concerned. And we've all had a great deal of experience, I'm quite sure. And one of the more recent experiences that I had in November was to go to the aid of my friend, a friend of mine, and what actually happened was the newspaper took up this story, which was on the main line, very near right here in Philadelphia, and they had plugged it with so many stereotypes, red man, and all kinds of things like warpath, drunken brawl, this and that wasn't the end of it. And I accompanied him to the courtroom, and the man who's is voted in by the people, the magistrate, he went on to say that if you Indians, 1969, if you Indians cannot get along here, go on back to the reservation. Now he still believes that this kind of thing, he can command this, You know, we don't want you here.
You're un-American.
That's right.
On Thanksgiving Day, a group of Indian students from New England, and I went as chaperone. We went up to Plymouth Rock, and this was on Thanksgiving Day, and the kids demonstrated, and they carried big signs, and they said, "What do we have to be thankful for? Malnutrition on the reservation," and this sort of thing. And some people from the audience said, "But we were here first. Why do you want Plymouth?" And so then one of the fellows started talking with him, and it turned out, well, this man said, no, he says, "I can prove to you," he says, "we have records, we have land records to show that the farm that we have now belonged to us for several generations back." This was a white man talking to the Indian person whose tribe is from
Yes.
the Maine country, from Maine, the state of Maine. But this is the kind of thing that we keep running into, and I think this is probably like what you.
Yeah, we
What was your reaction then?
Well, I don't know. I was actually stultified to think that a man of such intelligence could be so bigoted.
Such position, rather.
Well, a position to actually to say he had the power to prosecute, but he was using it childishly to persecute. See? He was confused about what position he should, and even at the time, he was avoiding the issue of actually what was there. He wanted, oh, it was absolutely silly.
How did it finally end?
Went home. Clear, nothing happened.
With no bad thoughts about him?
Yes, and not only that, this newspaper, and I called him up and said, that was a bad thing what you printed about the Indian, And so he took it up from there, and he printed in there that I was coming up to his newspaper establishment to scalp him. And I was very mad, he said. That is silly.
That's
You know?
wrong.
Well, of
Because,
course
he actually openly told the people that I was about to commit a very infamous crime. See? I'm not capable of that because I consider myself a little bit learned that I don't have to resort to those measures.
But if we believe the stereotypes of the Indians that every American kid sees on television and movies, he's a savage man who's ready to draw your blood at a moment's notice. How do we fight that kind of an image?
Well, you mean like
I
the
guess
old
we've
Western
tried by
movie?
ignoring it.
Some efforts are being made in California to review all the books that are used in the public school and to see that the facts are correct as relating to Indians, and it might be something that people ought to undertake here. I don't know that we have textbooks that are wrong. Maybe we do.
We do.
Oh, certainly.
You mean
you have
absolutely
it's all
like a
across the
governmental
reservations,
endorsement?
across the United States.
Well, not only
approval.
that, I think most of the kids think that all Indians are the same, that they all lived in teepees and hunted buffalo. My kids were very surprised to find out that the groups that we were studying, the Eastern Woodland Indians, lived completely differently from their image of an Indian.
Talking about something rather standard like that, my little girl just picked up a book out of the library on, she's speaking on Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's history. And in there it says, things to do. Meet an Indian, learn an Indian song, crush some corn to make mush, make a little teepee. And it's a little silly, you know. I mean, how much can you do? You know, and this
Stereotypes of
is
an
open
Indian.
for the people.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, in our library. And then I called the library the other day about some works which I wanted to check back on. And I says, I wonder if you have this available for in a public documents, you know, the treaties. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't carry those. You'll have to get them elsewhere. But one of our biggest libraries in Philadelphia here.
I think
I
practically
spent
all
the
our
summer
public
looking
schools.
for Indian books in the libraries, and they're not very many, and most of them rather bad
Yeah, they're too generalized.
Well, the
and contradictory.
Yes.
the most you might say comparative example you might give is perhaps my wife, for example. She had received a rather good education as a musician, and she, during her time in studies as a child, you see, had run across an encyclopedia of American Indians, and from this, looking over there, rather accidentally running across a page where it remarked that Indians used to pull their hair out of their faces with clamshells, you know, in which, for many generations, by pulling it out, you see, they eventually acquired the fact that they don't have any hair on their face anymore.
Not only that, I was surprised to read in another part of a book where they were surprised. You know, I mean, this is sort of historical work, you might say. What category does it belong? Where it studies the people, you know? I mean, their physical sort of appearance. And they were so surprised that the Indian wasn't really actually embroidered with a lot of body hair, you know? Say, well, he's practically naked. I'm really surprised, you know? And a lot of things, you know, and people just, the way I guess that's how these names start about people.
Oh, at another level, at the university level, I understand that a sociology class in Utah was teaching the students that the Navajos ate lizards. That was our diet, our daily diet.
Have you ever tasted one?
Oh, oh yes, they're delicacies.
Well, rattlesnakes are good to eat, so I understand. I've never tried one.
I think that the thing that you mentioned, this I believe it's the American Historical Society that is embarked on this project to develop curriculum or textbooks for American education. I think that is something that needs to be done on a large scale. And it shouldn't have to come, it seems strange that it should have to come from the Indian group themselves.
I don't think it's that strange at all. I think it
No,
would be
well, it should have been something that was inculcated in the educational system in the beginning.
Educators ought to be interested in the truth.
Because, that's right, they should be, they say they are pursuing truth, they're pursuing facts. And yet there's nothing that said
I
that's
wonder why, if
reasonable
the
about
missionaries have been
Indians.
with the Indians so long, why haven't they put out books about Indians in their actual
have.
life?
They have. Now, I was trying to pull out of my
Now?
memory.
Well, they have,
past.
but they're romanticized probably.
I was on the Menominee Reservation
Right,
a
the
few
Cooper,
years ago, just before
James
school was
Cooper.
about to start.
Yes.
And the books were on the top of the desk, ready for the children. I think it was 6th grade. And the book that was on top was Our Mediterranean Heritage. Those children didn't have any Mediterranean heritage.
What is the Indian Rights Association doing to help in this area, or are they?
Yes, I hope we are. We maintain an office in Philadelphia. It's the oldest Indian interest organization in the country. And when inquiries come for speakers or for information, I think in connection with the incident that you mentioned, we try to give information or give help. We collect money from people who are philanthropically inclined and have given quite a lot to the Indians, the Passamaquoddy Indians in Maine, which they then use as they see fit to pay for the lawyer of their choice to pursue their claims cases against the state of Maine and the state of Massachusetts.
How are those
No, I'm talking
cases?
about the material though for
Oh, for schools and that sort of thing?
schools, yes.
Well, we tell them about people who may speak to classes and show pictures or otherwise
That's
inform
not
teachers.
enough, you know. We need to have in our social studies programs at all levels.
We have a
need to have
tremendous number of
history.
inquiries that come in for information, just simple factual information that school children want, or high school children writing a paper or something like that. And so we do supply them with maps and with statistical information. And then our publication called Indian Truth, which isn't exactly a newspaper and isn't exactly a magazine, but somewhere in between. It gives something of current events. I have one in my pocket.
I'm thinking more of you know, wide
Literary,
sweeping reform within the American educational programs, and I'm thinking that perhaps the federal government could allocate, you know, monies, funds to develop these things on a large scale for state.
Well, we do
run
go to
schools and so
Washington to attend hearings and give testimony in behalf of legislation, and talk to senators and congressmen and committee members, and speak with the Committee on
Well-
Interior and Insular Affairs. So we try to transmit the wishes and what the Indians tell us. We don't try to impose our decision. We don't make any decisions as to what the Indians ought to do or what ought to be done for them, but by summer travels and field trips and communication with Indians, we try to keep informed as to what Indian groups want, and then make use of that to try to influence legislation or to educate the rest of the white population. We're not a huge organization. We don't spend millions, but I think we are effective in the scope of
How
our
long has
activity.
it been organized?
It was 1882 it was founded.
Really? Just voluntary?
Entirely non-denominational. It was founded by two Episcopalians, actually. Our president is a Catholic, and board members are of different denominations. We do not now have any Jewish member, but we have had Indian members, and would like to have more Indian members, but at the moment we do not have any Indian member on our board. We have Indian members who in the organization.
What is the future of your organization? What do you think are some things that you can do in the future to really make more of an impact than you have?
Yes.
Obviously, your association hasn't been that beneficial, or else we wouldn't have some
It
of the
hasn't been
problems we
tremendous,
have.
but we've initiated quite a few things. I think the work of the Alaska Federation of Natives right now would have been a few years behind, wouldn't be as far along as it is now if we hadn't given money to Alaska Natives to get together to have a conference to consider their own problems, and if we hadn't given some publicity to their needs. If we hadn't set up a conference of Indian leaders. We did not attend ourselves. We simply supplied the money to Indians to have a conference on Indian education. And Dr. Ed Wilson and some others got together in a conference in Denver from all over the country.
Mr.
And that
Hetzel.
was the beginning of this sort of thing.
Mr. Hetzel, how much of an influence has your organization had on the American Indian arts throughout the country? Has it had
We
any-
really haven't touched on that much. I've been interested in it myself, and I've visited the school at Santa Fe a number of times and stayed there a week one time. And I've taken a lot of photographs of the people there and some of their work, so I know something of it. And David Montana, who lived at our house for half a year, was an Indian artist, and so in some sense we may have made some contributions there. But the purposes of the Indian Rights Association are more educational to the white community and its influence on legislation. Not a lobbying group, because neither we nor the Indians are powerful enough really to call themselves lobbyists. We just don't have that weight of voters.
prestige? Yeah.
But you still keep yourself well informed so that you could call foul when foul is being
Oh, we sure do. Yes,
committed.
sure do.
But getting back to this, your question about the arts, I think the American educational programs could really benefit here, in the by studying Indian arts and the different kinds of forms. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
Yes, well, as far as my actual research and continuous operation on a very limited scale, because of the lack of funds that we have, I've been able to contact many people that probably have prominent calibers as far as the particular society is concerned. And I had run across Jack Bookbinder, who is the head of the Philadelphia, in the art department of the Philadelphia school system, which he in turn remarked the fact that this can be quite beneficial as far as the public school systems are concerned in the Philadelphia school system.
What was your training? You're an artist, aren't you?
Yes, well, I have done more or less independent research for about going completely beyond 10 years, I would say, of experience as far as the arts are concerned. I've been painting, and I've painted since I was 4 years old, as a matter
Do you
of
think the
fact.
public would actually recognize Indian artworks for the genuine thing if they did see it?
Oh, they would if they understood
sure,
it. It's simply
sure.
beautiful. There's
Well,
a
why
wonderful
is it
tradition there.
that Japan gets most of the market? Everything they send over here is made in Japan. You pick up a little set of beads made in Japan.
Well, the Indians
And
aren't
they've always
competing with
got
that.
these little things. Now, when we were talking about religion a while ago, you know, when we speak of they talk about the peace pipe. That's what we use. We still use that. And then you can go out to one of the little side roads and you find somebody's got all these little novelties for sale, and along there you see a little reproduction of a peace pipe.
Well, that may sell to the
Buy this
tourists.
for your little
Sure.
child, and you see the
But,
little child running around, throw it in the dirt and everything.
But
There's a
that's
great
not the
deal-
art that I'm thinking about. You
No.
see. I'm
Well,
talking
I mean,
about
in
the-
a sense,
That's crafts.
it's production.
Look at what she's
it's a
wearing.
cultural item.
That really has some
Significance. does there,
significance
yeah.
to that. That's,
These,
Hong
this
Kong
is
isn't
craft.
competing with that. And they're not competing with Hong Kong. They're just in two
Well,
different worlds.
there was an attempt though, or they had to. Then the government put some kind of regulation on imitation. You have to mark imitation jewelry and the authentic jewelry.
Well, as far
that's
as the
one way that they
government system
help
is
us.
concerned, as well in the arts, of course, they have a branch out of the Bureau of Indian Affairs that are, completely responsible from some of the outlets for the American Indian arts and crafts here, even in the United States. And I believe Mrs. Udall is pretty well active in that particular area. But I think what the big problem is there is the fact that most people, you see, when they embark on the fact that Indians do, have art endeavors, you see, but they generally classify immediately. As soon as you say Indian art, they immediately refer to totem poles or beads or anything of, or pottery or something of that sort, tapestries, you see, and completely missing the whole point about art that is really being produced today. See, there are many Indians that have gone to college, received degrees, in art, you see, that have very little opportunity in trying to expose their works, you see. So they sort of depend on each other. Like Philbrook Museum has been very active in trying to promote Indian art, you see, which is down in Oklahoma. And so they've been working very hard in trying to expose this and trying to bring it out of this, you might say, unsophisticated level, you might say. So my point is really, as far as the arts are concerned, can be easily run by a simple galvanization of Indian artists, you see, that are fairly interested in trying to expose their work as what they are producing today, you see. Meaning that if an art exhibit was to be exposed, you see, it should be actually established by American Indians, and they should actually be able to reveal their own concepts as far as their arts and creations are concerned.
That's right. Just like the American Historical Society, Indian Historical Society, I believe that this is primarily for American Indian scholars. As a matter of fact, I think it's a new development. There's going to be a very important scholars conference in Princeton. I believe Dr.
Dozier?
Ortiz, who's an Indian, who's from the Southwest. He's one of the faculty members at Princeton, and I believe he's heading this conference. It's only open to Indian people who are involved in some form of scholastic work. And that doesn't mean that they have to go to college either, because some of the traditionalists, who have great fund of knowledge in legends or folklore or even in the arts, and who have done considerable work, research. Most Americans, white people, when they hear the word research, they think of it in terms of going to library and researching from books and stuff. But many of the Indian people too are researchers in their own rights. People who know the herbs, the plants, and so forth. but
a lot of our medicines come
this is, I think this is an important, element.
You know, there are a lot of
consider.
sophisticated and knowledgeable European people who, when they come to this country, want to take something back to Europe as gifts to their friends or collections for themselves that's truly American. And those that are really discerning know that it's American Indian art and jewelry. There are things of very great value that are being appreciated by knowledgeable Europeans that, to an extent that
Well,
United
so it
States
goes here too.
That's right.
You take people
Some
going
do.
on vacation that's still advertising in your newspapers. Go through a reservation this summer, you might meet an Indian. See?
But as you said before, you'll find on that piece of art made in Japan.
Except for
Yeah.
Mr. Shenandoah's
Yeah.
work there.
Yes.
It couldn't be
No, that-
no imitation.
See, my object mainly is to bystep all that, all that matter. You might say the decadence or the classification of the decadence of the American Indian art. I had an experience here in Philadelphia when I, approached one of the rather prominent gallery owners here in Philadelphia, and I really went there actually to ask advice as to how I would go about establishing such an art endeavor that I have in mind. You see, which is actually to put an all-American Indian art show together, which will travel internationally. You see. So her first reaction was, what kind of art are you talking about? I want to see, do you have anything in your portfolio, or, and this kind of reaction, you see. So I said, well, I have very little example, or none at all, really, of what I'm talking about, because I'm only asking advice as to how I would go about this, because I don't know what the protocols or what I'd have to do in order to go through with this, about this, you see. So she had a reaction by saying, well, looking at one of the pieces that I had, she said, well, we're not interested in the washed-out version of the American Indian art. And, that sort of put me in a sort of a defensive, position, you see, advice. And I looked at her and I said, well, gee, thanks for your advice, And she followed me all the way out to the door until the door slammed behind me, and I said goodbye, And that's how people are, in responsive
Do you ever
to this.
exhibit your work in colleges?
Not yet. I haven't. See, I've been selling my work very little at a time, you see, because as far as I'm concerned, but my basic concern in putting this art show together would rather to exclude my work and to try to concentrate on most of the work that is being produced, you see, and to try to correlate these two together, you see, the primitive qualities, which are, which people, identify rather quickly in comparison to the works that have been done today, you see.
I'm
And-
really excited by the Institute of Santa Fe, the Indian arts there. Now that really is an attempt to shatter a lot of the, the old conceptions of what Indian art is, and they're
Mhm.
using new forms and a new, art language.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited by the fact that these kids are just really excited, happy, creating things,
Mhm.
which has something of the past, but a look
Well, that's
in the
basically
future.
what the object of art is, you see,
in
it's an
the
expression
future.
of one's,
But there's nothing. So I call this sort of thing Walt Disney-ish. Some of these paintings that you see. And I guess this is what this woman might have been referring to. I don't know.
uh-huh.
But there's this real pale, two-dimensional, art that you see on the market
Oh, yeah,
quite
yeah.
a bit.
Mhm.
But I think that the new Indian art is, as far as painting's concerned, they're really exploding all kind of myths about this, and they're exploring a new world.
Mhm.
That's just how I feel about
Mhm.
the new Indian art.
Yeah, art itself has a way of expressing oneself as and it has a way of getting beyond a lot of these trivial matter, or and bringing two different cultures together as far as the arts
Mhm.
are concerned. But they still have their own individual identification.
That's
like,
right.
For example, the French and the Italian art. You see, you don't have to have any knowledge of what art is, and you could still identify them from one from the other. You see, that's
Mhm.
how. Art
No,
is.
but
Well,
I would like, oh, excuse me.
Well, I was really going to change the subject a little bit. I think Indian art is a very interesting and important thing. We don't spend the hour on it either.
No,
perhaps.
I don't.
But I do know that Gloria is one of the founders of and connected with the Southwest Indian Development Corporation or something like that. And it
Yes.
sounded very interesting. I know nothing about it.
Okay, first of all, the important thing is that it was started by 5 young Navajos, and I was young 2 years ago.
15, did I understand?
And the purpose of this thing was we weren't quite certain, what we would focus on exactly, but we knew that we were anti-establishments on the reservation. So in a sense, this is political. So what we were concerned because, like I said, many of these kids, Navajos, are brainwashed by the federal government education programs. So then we said, these kids don't know enough about their enemies. Their enemies today are the Indian traders who take advantage of the Indian artists, the handcrafts, and so forth. All this. You may be familiar with some of the horrible things that have happened in the past with us. And as a matter of fact, you might even relate this somewhat with what happens with the black people in the black communities, the ghettos. The merchants, in a way, tie the people to them, because they're so poor, they tie the welfare checks all up. Well, this is the same thing that's been happening on the Navajo. And so we had no groups to counteract this. We have no groups to counteract the BIA or even the tribal council, the ones we call the puppet leaders.
Because they are set up by the BIA.
Right. And then we didn't have anybody to speak against the missionizations that are going on. And all these kind of bad things are happening, you see. So then there were only 5 of us. And so what we did is we banded together. We decided, well, this is the way that old people used to do, but we're going to do it in a new form. We're going to incorporate. And we've then went out to the American public and we explained to them what is happening. And we asked for contributions for some of the work that we wanted to do, and we specifically focused on the young kids, on the teenage group or the college age group. We got students, and we have had 2 workshops so far. The first workshop, the kids discussed all the the Indian history and so forth, especially pointing out these political, economic problems. And then in the second workshop, which was last summer, the students, there were 20 of them who did a research action project. In other words, they went out and they documented all these bad things I said, happened with the traders. And now we have a report, which is extremely important. And it's the first report that was written by the Navajos themselves about what's going on. And these kids, we are giving them the opportunity to develop whatever projects that they want. But it really is anti-establishment. And this is why people like Barry Goldwater and so forth say that the legal aid program that's on the reservation, they say that we're their puppets. We're not. We're just as, we've got just as much brains as anybody else. And when Barry Goldwater comes along and introduces this into the congressional hearing, and when he says that that the DNA, which is that legal aid program, when he says that we are their puppets, he's not giving us credit for any brains whatsoever. Well, we have the backing of the Episcopal Church. They came through and gave us $25,000. We just got this amount this fall, and then we have $3,000 that we got. I might be wrong on this. I'm not sure about the exact amount, but a small amount from Rockefeller, and this is in the form of stocks, blue chip stocks on Wall Street. And then so we can take that out anytime we want. And then we have other sources are beginning to become aware of us. The Kennedy Foundation is becoming aware that we're coming to the fore. And I'll tell you one thing: the establishments on the reservation don't like us. And this is one of my reasons why I'm going to Harvard, because even though I felt like in some ways I have some radical ideas about what needs to be done and so forth, I'm becoming even more radicalized. In fact, I'm seeing things that I couldn't see before, because I was so close to the problems. This is really a tremendous boost for us. This summer we're going to give the students jobs, and they're going to examine some of these things that I'm talking about themselves. They're going to hear the pros and the cons from the different
Could I
groups.
ask, what age are these students?
Well, anywhere at 16 on up.
All right. You
Um,
prove the truth of the statement, never underestimate the power of a woman.
well, I wasn't the only one. There were other.
All
There's
women?
one.
All girls, rather?
No,
Oh, there had
three
to be.
men. Well, now our board has expanded, so that there are more young men on this
Women
group.
have always played a pretty good part
They
in
really Well,
saying
that's
what
true.
had to be done.
That is true.
They
But
have always had the part, and they should be, as long as they stay on the same level. If it's intelligence, that's what it's needed.
Well, you'd have to climb to the
that
intelligence
the
of a
Indian
woman
the
now.
Indian tribes generally have given us equal status, haven't they?
Yes.
And this is one thing that you can't say for the non-Indian.
I don't want to cut you off, but I do want to hear from Chief Shenandoah about the status of women among the Iroquois. I think that's something very worth saying. How they are the clan mothers who established the chiefs. The chief.
Yeah,
Well, you
well,
better tell it.
The clan mothers are the one that put up the chiefs. Each clan mother puts up 2 of them. So, the main chief and the sub-chief. And she might carry the bear clan, so she puts up a bear clan. And it's divided in 2 parts. That's where the Six Nations is democracy. And they have 2 groups, and then the Six Nation chief is set up by the chiefs themselves. But the clan mother puts up the chiefs. After the chiefs are all set up on each reservation, then from there, that's where the head chief is set up by all the chiefs.
Could you call it then a matriarchal society?
No,
But the property is inherited through the female's line, is it? I would have thought I would have called it the matriarchal.
no, I wouldn't say. It's just that they put up the chiefs. And this way, well,
Then the chief
and
really
the chief govern the
Yes, he
Yes.
governs.
governing body.
But if the clan mothers don't like the way the chiefs are governing, they can depose the chief too, can't they?
That's right.
Yes. So they have a lot of power behind the throne.
Yeah.
I think I'll become an Indian.
No, I felt the same way she did before I came off the reservation. And I hitchhiked up here, see, from Kansas. And while you're there living on the reservation, and you can drive through different white communities and different areas, and you can see, gee, they got beautiful homes. Yes, they're beautiful. But what have you got back on a reservation? Well, it's pretty good. I know how to use it. I know what I can use, what is there, And then you never really notice the problems until you get away from it. And then you really see what kind of a hell pit this is. It's just a ugly miasma, created by the United States government. Every time they signed a treaty, they didn't realize they made a poverty pocket right there.
And when
it's
we
an
say
ugly kind
when
of
we
thing.
say federal government, we also mean those people around us, like the ranchers and the landowners around us. They're the ones who influence the federal government. They're the ones who do it. They influence it through the congressmen. And so
So,
You know what they did with the school board at South Dakota when the Indians did turn out to vote about an issue that concerned them? They voted for the first time in great numbers. And in so doing, since so many went to the polls, they voted themselves an Indian school board. And that so outraged the
I don't
white
even-
people
I-
that they abolished the county.
I don't even know if I have the right to vote in the United States or not, according to that 1846 treaty. See, I mean, it
But
said
your
all those
1924 one says yes.
all those that wanted to become citizens would, after such a time, if the president saw fit and that they were of competent mind, that they would have to report before the Supreme Court in Kansas and swear allegiance to the United States and take the oath. But all those that sold their land that was allotted to them automatically became citizens. So our land isn't sold, which means I'm not a citizen of the United States, in
Well,
other
the
words.
1924 law does make you a citizen. Yes.
Well, see, I mean, I have to accept citizenship by force, whether I even knew it or not.
Yeah. Many Indians object to that, and you have good
That's
reason
right.
to.
Speaking about something that
Laws made in
like that.
pursuance to the Constitution.
even the civil
know?
rights was not really for example, the Puebloan thought that they were being forced to accept the civil rights. Isn't this? Do you know
Very
about
true,
this?
yes. The Indians, there are aspects of the civil rights legislation which most of us would have said were beneficial, and the black community has clamored for them. And many of the people in the Indian communities do not like it, and with good reason. It's an intrusion of our system of doing things, the rule by the majority and rule by law in matters of religion that they don't wish to have their religion controlled by white politicians, state politicians.
Well, could I ask, Tony's in the grade school and I'm in college, and I do deal with girls who are going to be teachers, both on the elementary school level and at the high school level. What would you suggest that I do?
Send them to me, I'll train them.
Indians have said that
It's a
before.
good question. What do we do?
Yes,
What can we do? Kids pass through my hands. They go through your
Yes, I
hands.
train teachers.
There should be a form of interrelationship there somehow. Your particular school or your organization or whatever you're involved with should actually establish some sort of liaisons which would probably receive others that have similar, understandings, and they themselves might be able to negotiate some sort of functioning, system where, everybody there that desires to teach on reservation would have, the opportunity to do it.
I think the anthropologists have made a very great contribution here in informing the rest of us of new insights that we hadn't previously had, of the values of other cultures and the truth about other cultures that is very broadening and illuminating and rewarding to know something about. We are very much enriched, or at least I feel that I am very much enriched in my understandings by things that I've learned from Indians or read about Indians, that very much to my benefit and could be to the benefit of others. And
Good enough
my
if you've
society.
got the backing finance to get the information.
well, you can read it.
There's
helps
a
to
lot
travel
that you
too,
can
but-
do
I mean,
without
how many reservations
incurring,
have
much
libraries?
expense. I think
Oh, I'm
that,
talking about
Mm.
white teachers.
Gloria?
this is a problem that I've become aware of. I don't know 1, 2, 3, how to do it. But I was working with the Newton School in Boston, or near Boston, with one of the other students. She decided that she wanted to help the teacher do a curriculum on Indian history. And I said, I can't do this for you. I can only give you about the Navajo. And so then both of us working together, we developed a unit on the Navajo. And the students were really interested. These were ninth graders, and they were asking me all kind of questions. I wish you, had been there so you could have answered them about, treaty rights
yes.
and so forth. But I can't say that, maybe the thing for you to do is to, if you're from Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, yes.
Well, I think you
Right
ought to work
outside
with
of
these
Philadelphia.
fellows here in, developing something for your schools.
She wouldn't have a very comfortable ride in a truck, I'm sure.
But there are Indian people all over the United States, and with just a little bit, searching around, you find them. You'll find them in all the major cities. You have some really good books. They're anthropological studies, like you said, and there's some, things to be said against anthropologists who prowl around and, snoop in our private lives and
you
so
find
forth.
it in the medical profession too as well, like take psychiatrists and many other medical doctors. They say, well, boy, I need an extra buck, so they write a book, put it on the market,
Yeah.
and bingo. They've got other things coming in besides their own profession, what they're practicing.
Now, if schools like Harvard, Wesleyan, if schools in the on the West Coast, these colleges and universities, if they can begin serious studies, American Indian studies, and then with these scholars, I mentioned the scholars program conference coming up. If these things can, I think they'll begin paving the way for
Yes.
you know,
Because
to,
most of
for
us have
reform.
just
because it's not just a problem with the American Indian, it's also one for, you know, the Latin American and the Black Americans, you know, are facing.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question even broader than what do we do about the schools. What can we do altogether? We've talked here and clearly established a moral outrage is happening daily, has happened since the white men got here. What can I do about it? I'm really, really frustrated.
If you have knowledge of the Indian, and then you can help by spreading the truth about them. In your
There are a
associations
lot
with
of
other
people watching this right now. What can they do? Tell them something to do.
Well, I would just say recognize Indian as for what he is, as much respect as we have for them. And indeed, I respect them.
What
That's
can we
a
do
beginning, yes.
about the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which has a stranglehold apparently,
It certainly
establishes the
has.
ruling
Well,
councils of tribes, and
in the springtime, I think we're going to sit in on the BIA offices. You're welcome to join us. But no, I think this is a very serious
would you
question.
actually invite whites to come and join you in the sit-in?
Well, you can stand on the sidelines.
But
Okay.
if you're going to go into something like that, and you take a mass of people joining together, and they don't all understand what it's all about, I mean, you just got
First of all, there
a
has
pile
to
of
be
confusion.
there has to be a public education of you know, American Indians and the crisis that we're going through now. And I think that in every way possible, you've got to bring people who know what the problems are. People of the caliber of Senator Kennedy, people like Senator Harris and McGovern. These are they are the three main men, you know, congressmen who know more or less what the situation is, and they need your support. The Americans can help them, and in most of the bills that they introduce, they are, you know, for the American Indians.
One thing I think really has to be said here, in our opposition to the Bureau of Indian Affairs and saying all the things that are bad about it, we ought to be careful not to condemn it outright, because
Why not?
the Indians' worst enemies also want to get rid of the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
That's true.
And then terminate the Indians and get out of the Indian business and stop all federal services to Indians and tax the Indian land and buy up the Indian land and throw them into the cities and let them sink or swim if they can.
We
Most of them
haven't
sink.
even begun
Is
to
that the
talk
idea
about
of that
the
termination?
Yes.
thing that the
That's
Indian
the best
people
way to escape
themselves.
from the problem, I guess, is just to terminate the Indians. I mean,
Kill 'em, in
their
other words.
responsibility to the Indian.
But
Sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
What
You
the-
haven't solved the problem.
what the public needs to know is that the Indian people are afraid of termination.
Sure.
The ones who don't
Something
have
to be
hardly
afraid of.
anything
It's
to
nothing, not just a
hand
matter of being
on.
afraid of it. They are afraid of it, to be sure. But
To
it's
lose all
absolute
value
injustice.
and morals is one thing to be afraid of. That is exactly what's going to happen to the Indians.
We have guaranteed that this land shall be Indian land forever. That's the payment that we make for all the rest of the land that we took. And that debt cannot be paid by stopping our services to Indians or the protection of the trust tax-free value of their land. That land should be Indian land in eternity. Now, if there aren't any more Indians someday, or if people want to forget that they're Indians, let it still be public land, or let it call it Indian land, where whatever Indians there are can call it their home and they go back and spend the summer vacation.
Well,
or
see, that's the way. That was the real intention of a lot of those treaties when those Indians had strength to fight back, and they said perpetual care, sort of no end to it, as
So let's-
long as God is.
Let's correct
all
the Bureau of
these
Indian Affairs, but let's not
Beautiful
abolish it.
mellifluencies, you know, and they
Well,
never
yeah.
followed up through with it.
I'd like to ask
Well,
Chief
they
Shenandoah.
believed in the Creator, so that they thought that in their words, when they promised them this, they promised them that, they'd keep their word.
The Indians
They
are-
relied on their religion too much, and they never give them the real satisfaction.
Yeah.
So, to the answer to your question, I would like to get back to that, not really to change any of the subject matter. You say that many people that are watching, you see, and you yourself want to do something, and you find yourself being frustrated because you don't know exactly what to do.
I
Is that
can tell
correct?
you, last year I taught a lot of kids the song, Buffy St. Marie's song, Now That the Buffalo Is Gone, which is about the Kinswood Dam.
Mm-hmm.
And I explained to them that there was a treaty signed with the Iroquois guaranteeing this land as long as the grass shall grow, I think was the line.
Oh yes, it's a very common
Signed
one.
by
yes.
George Washington.
Mhm.
And the treaty was broken. These were kids who were 9, 10, 11. They
Mhm.
couldn't believe it. How could that happen, they say? The father of our country.
Who
why
never
would he
told
do-
a lie.
Mhm.
Who never told a lie.
Mhm.
And some of them, I think, wrote letters to Washington.
Mhm. See, this part is not actually the destruction of the Indian himself. This is actually to the destruction of oneself, which is meaning their own children, you see, by denying them the right to know the truth of what has actually exist in the past. History is evolved around the occurrences that have happened in the past. And whether you have either a choice to either accept the truth of the history or rather to deny it. And most, of course, as we recognize, have denied the whole truth of what history has established, you see. But one thing we cannot do, I mean, even at this moment, we cannot establish historical accuracy. We can't, it's impossible to do such a thing. So what one can do, perhaps, you see, is to come to a sort of a negotiable understanding between two parties. You are of a different species than I am, but I still respect you for what you are. You see, and each should have the same thing, and each should have be entitled to that matter, you see. So what can happen if you want to do something about the Indian is to make your commitment, and we don't know how unless we ourselves can get together and to establish some workable system that might be able to resolve many of these trivial problems, which I consider many of them very trivial, if you get beyond the triviality of these difficulties, you see. So what can happen in the long run, people then will become recognized. You know, the Indians themselves will be socially recognized as a living people, you see, and other people will learn to understand and respect that. They will grow and learn by the fact that Indians are people and they dress the way they want to, and I respect the fact that they can wear long hair and wear a headband and 3 feathers if they want to, you see. And I equally can do the same without having to get my hair cut too short, you see. Both are wrong too. I mean, like this hippie business of today, you see. A lot of them are wearing long hair because of a certain identity. And a lot of, you know, the complete opposite is done too by people wearing very short hair because of the same identity, you see. I mean, these matters are sort of trivial if you just look at them, you know, in a different sense, you see.
The Cherokee Indians became very much a part, excuse me, very much a part of the girls up at the school, because one of the girls did a research paper on their troubles with Georgia. And you know, they turned out to be real people with real problems. And some of the girls were sort of surprised because they have had no knowledge of the troubles that the Indians went through.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it a great success.
Of course.
I think
When-
it is successful since they have identified them as people.
As
see.
people, right.
One of the things that I think could also be done by the American public is that they could support housing programs. They could support programs that will allow us to control our own destiny as much as possible. And these are usually through community action programs. The OEO programs, for example, there's a great deal to be learned from these things, you know, because for one thing, this is really the first time that Indian people are running, you know, the show. And it's slow. It's slow getting off ground, sure, but learning is slow. And I got my training as an administrator through OEO funds, you know, through the...
What do you think of Head Start? In a sense, it's education, but it's in the community's control, isn't it?
That's right. I have a lot of misgivings about the Head Start program on the Navajo, but at the same time, it really has been under the control of the Navajo people.
I've seen it in many places, not the Navajo,
Right.
and I thought it was doing a great thing. But it is getting children ready for the white man's school in
What
a
I'm
way,
afraid
too.
of, what I'm afraid
that's
of for
bad.
the Head Start on the Navajo is that many of the parents don't understand what education is, and so they expect the little 4 and 5-year-olds to learn 1, 2, 3, you know, the alphabet, you know, right in the beginning, and they're really worried when the other people, you know, aren't teaching the children this, because as we understand Head Start, the Head Start program was set up to introduce the concept of, new opportunities to kids and help them enjoy this experience. This is supposed to be a happy exposure to, something different. Because after all, they're going to spend 12 years in school.
What kind of changes have to happen in Indian schools?
There's going to have to be more emphasis on allowing the Indian people truly to govern what is being taught.
Some of
The
the
Indian-
teachers
there has to
probably will
be-
have to speak
There
Indian.
has to be greater exposure to the Indian people about what's going on, not necessarily to the white world, because the Navajos are the last ones who understand what's going on. There are more liberals in New England and in New York who know about the atrocities of the Navajo Indian education than many of the Navajo people themselves. And the education has to start, back at our level, back in my place. And it's not going to come from you. People won't believe you. If you came on my reservation and you said Navajo education is bad and so forth, they brand you as a communist, or anybody else who came in, you'd be agitators, you see. And so it's my responsibility. I'm the only one that can do something about it. But I've got to have a support, the support of financial support.
You have to have
And
a
it's
ship.
also got to be no strings, attached to it. If you're going to help me with money, you've got to concede that I know what I'm doing.
That's strange, that the Indian has to ask from so many different charity organizations to get money to stabilize himself, when the government itself is not even giving anything to the Indian what he really owes him. And that's the strange part about it.
That's right. You're right.
And then in a lot of the treaties, it's still so stated that they gave so many thousands of dollars toward education.
But it
And-
takes an act of Congress, and we can't wait.
That's
We've got
right.
to
It was
live
so
now.
put together
We've got
like
to-
mutual funds, Just like I was telling you ago about genocide. People talk about genocide a lot today. Well, when they made that treaty at Council Bluffs, the Potawatomis, and they said there was $850,000, and they broke it down to different areas. Different amounts to certain things. And it stated in there, the remainder will not be given by the government until this tribe is reduced below 1,000 souls. Now, if that isn't genocide, what is it? And they knew what was going to happen. And they, just like everything else, they bought their reservation for $89,000. All right, priority. One Catholic mission, one Baptist mission, and another thought. A railroad right across your land. And how much more?
These exposures have to come. The press has got to support us. But let's be frank about it. The press in the West is not going to help us. The New Mexico papers or the Council Bluff papers aren't going to let these things come, open. They're not going to expose these things.
They're not for the public.
And
not
so
for the
that
Indian.
the
I haven't.
so-called liberal newspapers from the East have got to come out. New York Times can really help us, and even the Boston papers, they've had some good articles on
The Washington Post has,
right,
too.
and
I
so
think-
has the
I think
Washington
that-
Post.
I think the reason that they shy away from it is because they're not too informed themselves.
There have
They're
been some
afraid
good
to
things in the
print it
bulletin and
because
in the
they say,
Inquirer
well,
here
we're
in
not really
Philadelphia.
backed up with the information, the proper information, because we might say something that's wrong. So they fear it.
But then we have to also remember that the so-called silent American, or the great majority or whatever, they come from the Midwest, and they come from the West, I think. And they call the Eastern liberal newspapers as being, they have a sense of superiority, and they give them all, they brand them as being too liberal. And so, we're up a tree again. I don't know. I really don't know what the...
I've had an experience with
Solutions.
the local newspaper, and I thought, gee, they really, took me quite well. They understood the problem rather well.
Something
They
you
were
said a
very
moment
eager
ago
for it.
about the future reminded me of something that your predecessor of the Idaho, George Thomas, told me one time. Said, "Think not forever of yourselves, O chiefs, but think of posterity of the faces coming from below the ground. And I thought that was beautiful, that they really feel that people come, the ground is the roots of our soul, the roots of our sustenance, the roots of our people. We really, and we really value posterity. We really think toward the future. We're not just trying to make a buck today and exploit the resources, but our loyalties are to the future. And I think that's something our culture needs very badly.
That refers to the younger generation.
Right.
Under those conditions, it wouldn't be temporarily. Whatever they correct within today was only to last maybe a few days. And if they had that same attitude, you would find that this particular culture would live and flourish much greater than what it has. And of course, their flourishment so far is quite limited. I mean, the United States has not really made a tremendous amount, but they've made a lot of tremendous material comforts, but they only resolve a temporary matter, you see.
People seem to think times are going rather rapid, and it hasn't been too long ago, at least 100 years, since the dealings with the Indians like that for his land. It hasn't been that long ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that I think, too, that can be done is I wish that somehow some leaders, Indian leaders, could really capitalize on the strengths of these universities and colleges. I think, you remember what happened during the marches on Washington. We don't know how effective they were, but you saw masses of young people who really were concerned about the issues of Vietnam. And certainly, the problems of the things that we're facing, they could help us with. I think that posters and underground newspapers, anything, buttons, anything that they can do to help us, to